Share with us a little bit about you, your background, how you got into real estate.
Yeah, my background is mostly corporate management. So I had a lot of management training before I got into real estate. I think that was a real blessing. And so I still use that training to this day. I think we have, as of yesterday, we have 45 employees across all of our companies. So that kind of training has certainly been helpful. But I got into real estate actually after corporate world. I got into personal finance, helping families plot out their future, retirement, college, all those types of things. And in the '07 downturn, I lost everything there and was looking for something to do. And I looked at real estate. I had dabbled with real estate, but maybe 3 or 4 points throughout my life, just a house here, a house there. And when I had no other option, I said, you know what? I've always wanted to do real estate full time. I don't have anything else, so let's give it a go. So in late 2007, I started wholesaling, and that's when I met you. Actually, late '07, I went to one of your seminars that you were doing in Houston, and I did not know you from Adam. But I was sitting there, and you stood on a stage and said that if I put out bandit signs, that people would call me and want to sell their house at a discount. And I'm just, if anything, I'm coachable. So I went home and I put out a bunch of bandit signs. I put out 100 signs a week for the next 2 years. Every Friday, I put out another
Wow.
100 until I had thousands of signs all over the Houston Metroplex. And that really launched my real estate career. So you had a big part in it. So
Yeah,
I'm
and
honored to be here with you on your podcast.
yeah, definitely. And I'm really honored to have been a part of your journey there. One of the things that you did so smart that I so wish I had done it with you back then was when you transitioned over to the multifamily side. Looking in hindsight now, wow, like that would have been amazing for me to have gone over to multifamily with Tom back in those days. So share with me what made you decide to get out of the single family, not really get out completely, but transition to the multifamily and went all in on that side of the business.
Yeah, I don't get out of anything usually. So we had been doing houses for quite some time and I don't get out of anything usually. So we had been doing houses for quite some time and my goal was to get to a point where I had a particular amount of residual income coming in on a monthly basis. And I knew it was going to take me a long time with single family homes to get to that number because I was using leverage. And back then I calculated that if you had 10 free and clear or 15 free and clear homes, you'd be pretty well set. But if you're using leverage, it's going to take a large multiple of that. So instead of 10, it might be 60 or 50 or whatever the number is. And I knew doing it through single family was going to be more challenging than if I could step up to multifamily. The other thing that happened in 2011 is you couldn't give away multifamily properties in the Houston Metroplex. You literally couldn't give them away. So I always look for what I call market dislocations. And I feel that in 2011 and 12, there was a definite market dislocation with apartment complexes, particularly in the Houston metro. The most we paid for an apartment complex, and these were all mostly occupied or at least 50% occupied properties that didn't have a lot of deferred maintenance. The most we paid for any unit was $24,000 a door. The least was 13.8. It was just an anomaly in the market. But when you see those, you've got to be able to jump quickly because I always have said also that anomalies are short-lived and everything reverts to the mean ultimately. And as we saw with that, over the next 22 months, my wife and I bought an apartment complex every 48 days, and it was over. In
Mm.
22 months, the prices had gone back to the mean, and I could no longer buy those deals that we found.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, and I remember too those days. I have met some others that got into the multifamily, and yeah, they were buying so cheap that even at 14% hard money rates, they will still be able to afford to buy these deals. And it was just, yeah, blew my mind away. So you expanded from single family to multifamily. And then a few years later, you expanded into the hard money lending business. So walk us
Right.
through that because what I'm trying to accomplish here as we talk about each of your assets is how you make that decision each time you expand into something.
It's a real scientific method that I have, Tim. I don't know if anybody could replicate it, but I'll try to explain it. When somebody sells me something for way less than I think it's worth, I buy it. When they offer me more than I think it's worth, I take it. So I don't know if anybody's going to be able to replicate that. It's so scientific, but that's really the gist of it. Back in those days that we're talking about, 11 and 12, people were selling apartments and literally you could buy, and I did. I bought many of them on hard money. I've never used hard money actually, but I used a lot of private money. I used private capital at almost hard money rates and was still able to cash flow those properties, some of them until we exited a few years later. And some of them, of course, we refinanced down the line. But about the end of 2012 and into early 2013, we weren't able to buy at those numbers anymore. So I stopped buying. And that's another thing that I think real estate investors in general could learn from. When there's no good buys, stop buying. Don't buy stupid deals just to be buying something because that's when you get in trouble. So I sat on the sidelines, and a lot of my private money people came to me and they're like, oh, we don't want you on the sidelines, Tom. You got to be buying something. We got to keep this money working. And that's when I came up with the idea of starting a lending company. And the whole idea of it back in 2014 was we could start a company and lend at the number I would buy at.
Hmm.
Even though the market wasn't selling at that price anymore, I could still lend at that number. And if my borrowers wanted to pay more, God bless them, they'd have to put their own capital in to do. And honestly, not scientific, but that was the whole philosophy. And my biggest private lender, I pitched this to him and he said, yeah, let's do this. So we started it together. And in fact, 4 months ago, I just bought him out. He and I were actually together for 11 years and started all of the ILS related companies together until about 4 months ago when he decided to retire. But yeah, that was the whole idea. It was really not something I set out to do $1 billion in loans or any number of loans or anything. It was a way to keep my capital and who had my private lenders had actually become my friends, many of them. It was just a way to keep our capital moving in a way that was safe and not in a way where we were overpaying for an asset. Now, in retrospect, I wouldn't have been overpaying. Obviously, if I'd have bought apartments in 2016 or 17, I'd have still been okay. But I didn't know. We had been on a long run. We had doubled our money on those properties, and in some cases, even more than double. I was quite content with that. So I cashed out, took the chips off the
Hmm.
table, and we went to lending.
Interesting. So I know you as someone who's really good with economics and finance and forecasting the market. And so for you to have exit out of the multifamily that early, 2016, and not being able to, for better or worse, right, see the next few years as market, give us some insight into that. Like, how could you have, I don't know, if miscalculated is the right term, but
Oh, no, you
look,
can
look,
say it. Yeah. No,
yeah.
it was a miscalculation. Here's the reality. I'm always early. I'm early in and I'm early out. And that really benefits me on both ends. The people that are early in are going to get the best deals. They're going to be in before the crowd comes in. So I love being early in. And I'm okay with being early out. So many people have asked me what you just asked. I bet you wish you'd have held those for an extra 5 years. And I always say no, because if I had done that, I wouldn't have a $300 million a year lending company. It is better than the C-class apartment complexes I sold. No, one was a stair step to get me to the next. So it didn't harm me at all getting out early. In fact, I would argue starting that company actually took me further than holding those apartments would have, even
Hmm.
though they would have appreciated a little more. They would not have appreciated as much as we've grown that lending company.
Wow. Yeah. And you were definitely at the forefront of the hard money lending boom. We see it now. It's like everybody and their mama does hard money lending these days.
A lot of them are gone now. A lot
Oh,
of them have been washed out over the past 2, 3 years. It's
yeah.
not nearly as saturated as it was 3 years ago. I would say 2022 was probably the peak. And at that point,
Mm.
yes, you walk in a room at any real estate conference in Houston and reach out, you're going to touch a lender, a hard money company, employee somewhere. But now that that's thinned out. The herd is thinning.